Welcome to the Week 6 Swolecast here on FantasyInsiders.com. I'm David Kitchen. Joining me, Davis Mattek and Mr. Total 05, Dan Gaspar from FantasyInsiders.com. Also, we have Evan Silva. Evan, how's it going?
It's going well, man. I'm coming at you live from the Jersey Shore right now. Last night I finished my article, jumped in my car, drove to the Jersey Shore for this wedding, and I'm excited. I'm excited.
Was Martellus Bennett week that good?
It was good. I mean, I don't like when you have the nuts like that and you don't like take down a tournament. It's a little disappointing, but it was definitely a good week. It's just I don't know. Are we going to be able to crush the nuts like we did last week again this year? I wish that I would have won a tournament last week, but we move forward.
We do move forward. This is going to be an interesting week, Davis. Let's talk a little bit about the overall roster construction and like some Friday news and notes as far as Theo Riddick not playing. You got the weather in Oakland and Seattle. How is this all kind of shaping up for you?
I mean, I still think the most popular roster construction is going to be what it was on Monday, which is expensive quarterback, 2 expensive running backs, 3 cheap wide receivers, mid-range tight end on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, you're looking at a flex sort of between 4K and 6K, depending on which tight end and which quarterback you take. But there are 2 completely ultimate, you cannot fade them running back plays, which kind of puts you into a corner at wide receiver roster construction this week.
Yeah. We'll talk about running back in a second. Tuttle, are you kind of in the same bandwagon as far as initial roster construction?
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of cheap options. I'm not 100% sold that you have to pay up at quarterback, even though obviously there are some good higher end options. I think on DraftKings specifically, you can get away with going cheap at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that you can kind of take the cash game construction and kind of do opposite, where you go cheap, you go maybe cheap running backs, and then you go expensive wide receivers. Like Antonio Brown, his percent, like he's been like 30, 40%. He's going to be really, really low owned because his price tag is just so high right now. And you've got other high price wide receivers that are not in ideal situations. Silva, what's your overall take as far as the slate goes, and how does the Detroit news, let's start there, how does the Detroit news change your roster construction, if at all?
I don't want exposure to any running backs on the Lions. We got Dwayne Washington coming off ankle and foot sprains, wasn't even able to practice until Friday. Nah wave. Justin Forsett was horrible with the Ravens. He's cooked. Nah wave. Zach Zenner, I mean, I love me some Zach Zenner, but based on how little that they've used him so far, nah wave. If I want to play someone on the Lions, it's probably going to be Marvin Jones against a Rams team that is missing its top corner, Tremaine Johnson, and is also beat up in the front four.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the Packers situation goes with their running back situation, do we have any clarity there with Eddie Lacy and James Starks? And like, if they don't play, what does that mean for this Packers offense?
Well, I mean, clearly they are expecting at least one, if not both of those guys to play, or else they would have made a roster move by now, because they only have 2 running backs on their 53. They can use Aaron Ripkowski, the fullback, for some carries, but I would actually guess that both of those backs end up being active, and I don't want to invest in those running backs.
All right, let's start with quarterback. You've got Cam Newton, Davis. He's your brand guy. Cam is your brand guy. He's got a concussion though. Officially questionable for week 6. Where does this put you on Cam because they're tied for the highest team total. He's destroyed New Orleans in the past. Is he the guy that you want to jam in your cash game contest? Are you going to play him for the first time this year on all sites?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I played him.
Well,
but
on all the sites.
It's kind of tough. I think on FanDuel, he's clearly the top option because you're not getting a discount really on Hoyer or on Tyrod Taylor. But on DraftKings, Tyrod Taylor is 5,300 with sort of the nut matchup that any quarterback can have, which is facing the 49ers' awful road pass defense. Tyrod has like no ceiling just because that offense is so terrible, but he's got a pretty safe floor in this matchup. And at 5,300, he's the best, dollars per point type quarterback play. Cam would be the highest projected play. But the guy I'm really on this week, especially for tournaments, would be Russell Wilson at 6,900.
Does the weather is it not going to take you out? Like what has to happen in Seattle for you to be off Russell Wilson with this? Like they're already calling for severe weather.
Would have to be a report Sunday morning that winds are going to be like 30 miles an hour, probably, for me to get off him, or to see the total of the game go way down.
Yeah, game total would definitely be in place. Also, Alex Smith was an option for me on FanDuel. As gross as that was to say, it's going to be like 3 days of straight rain, also in Oakland. So probably going to take me off of there a little bit. Tuttle, what are you doing at quarterback this week? Do you feel like there is a cheap way? Are you going Kaepernick and cash? Like what's happening?
Not going Kaepernick and cash. Not going to happen. I agree with what you guys have been saying for the most part. I think Tyrod Taylor's in play on DraftKings. On FanDuel, probably pay up a little bit. I do like the Russell Wilson take. I think people will overreact to the weather. Hopefully, we'll see some positive reports. But basically, just keep your eye on any sort of line movement, like Davis already mentioned, in terms of Russell Wilson, and then also that Oakland game. If you don't see that line coming down dramatically or making any sort of movement, I think those guys are safe plays for cash games still.
Evan, what's your overall feeling about quarterback this week?
Well, because I did this drive, I was only able to play Thursday lock, and I just went with Carson Palmer against the Jets. And when I'm driving home, I'll be able to listen to that game on the radio and have a little in-car tilt.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous, fella.
Yeah, it could get dangerous. But the other guy that I was looking at was Alex Smith. The Raiders have the worst pass defense in football. I mean, by a lot of metrics. And they don't rush the passer. And Andy Reid historically has been really successful coming off the bye. That game opened with the Raiders as a favorite, and now the Chiefs are favored in that game, which I think is interesting. And Alex Smith has been a top 15 fantasy quarterback in 3 of his first 4 games, and that doesn't wow you, but he's cheap, and he's got a great matchup. And I mean, I don't know what to tell you about this weather stuff. Like, wasn't it 2 weeks ago that we were freaking out that some game was going to get moved until Tuesday, and then nothing ever even happened?
Yeah, the Titans and Dolphins.
I'm going to make my decisions right now, and then if I have to pivot on Sunday morning, then I'm going to pivot.
All right, let's talk about 2 games where there are some really bad teams in play. First of all, Steelers and Dolphins. And then the other one is Titans at home against the winless Browns. Let's start with Steelers and Dolphins. How much exposure are you wanting to get to this game? We talked about the onslaught. We won, I forget who it was. He won $17,000 in the early only contest and sent us a thank you tweet. So shout out to him for using the Steelers onslaught in his early only contest and crushing. Davis, is this another Steelers onslaught that you won, or you pretty much just picking and choosing Lev Bell and or Sammy Coates, like staying away from Antonio Brown?
In cash, I just think Antonio Brown is too expensive with the context of this week. Like, I would much rather take the $2,100 discount and play Le'Veon. I will definitely. So I said on this show, I think it was 2 weeks ago, It wasn't against the Jets. It was whoever they played before that Brown was too expensive for tournaments. But I actually think his ownership is going to be decreased enough with the overall context of this week that he actually is going to be a good tournament play, just because I think 35 points is only 3.5x for him, but 35 points just in and of itself in tournament construction is valuable. But in terms of like an onslaught, I'm not going to onslaught them if the wide receiver 2 is Darius Hayward-Bay or Eli Rogers. Sammy Coates has to be healthy for this offense to maintain the dynamic that they currently have. He's the NFL leader in receptions over 40 yards. He has a dislocated finger on his left hand. He did practice today, though.
Yeah, he practiced and he was catching balls. So you have to assume that he plays on Sunday.
Yeah. And so I think Coates is a cash play at 4,700 just because I do think you want a piece of this passing game, but it's hard for me to take Roethlisberger over these, the Saints, Panthers quarterbacks and over Russell Wilson. But yeah, the onslaught's totally in play, just jamming in Ben and Bell and Coates and Brown and James. Like they could score 45 for sure.
This Dolphins team is so bad. Like they're really bad.
They allow 73.8 plays per game, most in the NFL.
Oh, jeez. And
I'm not doing onslaught with Ben on the road.
I don't really care.
I wonder what percent of lineups will have Le'Veon and Antonio Brown though, just those two, because so much usage will be funneled through those two guys. I don't think that you have to do the onslaught this week. I think that you can just use those two guys. I think that very few people will have both of them. They'll just pick one, and you can find enough value at other positions. And I think that both of those guys can really go off this week.
All right, Tuttle, Titans and Browns. Mariota had an amazing game last week. It seems like they're calling some designated runs for the guy. This Browns team is just really bad. You've got them being the worst against the tight end position. So Delaney's possibly in play. DeMarco Murray, he just keeps on crushing with more and more volume. And this should be a game where they should impose their will like they did against the Dolphins. Are you on any Titans this week?
Yeah, I like Mariota quite a bit. I think you can run him in GPPs. I think he's a fringe cash game option as well. He's priced really low on both sides. FanDuel 7,600, DraftKings 6,100. I think he is a fringe option for cash just because he has a relatively safe floor in this matchup. Delaney Walker obviously is probably the nut option at tight end. 5,500 DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel is a little tougher to pay. And I think with lineup construction, it might be a little difficult to squeeze him in. But I do think point per dollar, he's probably the top tight end option.
Yeah, he's actually on FanDuel. I haven't been able to get to. I think Greg Olsen is probably the top overall play as far as raw points goes. It has been easier for me to get Delaney Walker in lineups, though. Evan, what's your take on this game?
The Titans-Browns game?
Yes.
I think that it's a little overrated. I don't think it's going to produce much scoring.
Bad teams are bad.
Just going to kind of let other people deal with this and have my exposure elsewhere.
Wouldn't be a Soccer Dave show if he didn't find a way to bring up the Titans, though.
They're literally playing the worst team in the league. I mean, it's something to discuss. They haven't scored a lot of points in the past and still have viable fantasy options. And especially DeMarco Murray. I think DeMarco Murray. I was talking to Leone.
Which team is playing the worst team in the league?
The Browns are playing the worst team in the league. IMO.
Got him.
Talking to Mike Leone, he's talking about how DeMarco Murray is just a tournament play every weekend with the volume that he's getting and just how they're using him. And at home, just consider those guys for tournaments. And I am definitely considering Delaney for cash games. All right, let's move on and talk about running back. We know Le'Veon Bell is like the number one option. He's the jam him in guy. He's the guy that you definitely want to have in your lineups. Let's talk about the other potential options. Tuttle, start with you as far as who some of your running back guys are.
Yeah, Jam and Le'Veon. LaShawn McCoy is going to be extremely high owned on DraftKings for 6,900, but rightfully so. He's a good option. Lamar Miller is another guy that I like quite a bit, but I think you'll see high ownership as well going up against the Colts. As far as kind of lower price guys, there aren't that many low priced running backs that I'm in love with this week. On DraftKings, if you want to chase PPR and GPPs, I do like Giovanni Bernard against the Patriots. I think it sets up for a Gio game.
Yeah. Gio definitely at 4,600 is in play. LaShawn McCoy and Le'Veon Bell just going to be really high owned on DK. There's another guy, though, at 6,200 in Jordan Howard against Jacksonville. We've just seen the amount of volume that he's getting. I think he's also in play. Like I've been playing with Le'Veon Bell, McCoy, and then either Jordan Howard or Mark Ingram, possibly even DeMarco Murray as that third running back option. Just the guys that are going to get plenty of work. Mark Ingram is a question mark. What are your thoughts about Ingram, especially like potentially in FanDuel cash games, Evan?
No, he was back at practice today, and he's going to go. He just sat out on Thursday due to an illness. Guys always play through that. I don't know. I mean, he can get vultured by John Kuhn. The matchup isn't that great against Carolina. They have a good run defense. You know, I like Mark Ingram a lot. I don't really play him in DFS a whole lot.
6,700. Definitely the touchdown upside is not there. One of the mistakes I talked about earlier that I think in week 4 is not, or even last week with Jerick McKinnon and some of these other guys, not using guys that had high touchdown probability, especially on FanDuel.
Nope. Absolutely. We are not recanting Jerick McKinnon love on this show. Take it back, David.
I didn't say
McKinnon
anything about
was
100%.
You said Jerick McKinnon.
No, I didn't.
Tuttle, did he or did he not just say Jerick McKinnon?
Forward-thinking show.
I thought he did.
No. Yeah, no. McKinnon's week last week was just all-time run bad. That was a bottom 10% outcome with the touches he got.
If this was anybody not in your brand, Davis, you'd be calling him the worst player ever. So low efficient. Like he's been worse than TJ Yeldon, and you say TJ Yeldon's not good. Like McKinnon has not had a good start.
I mean, 21 touches for 4,000. What a terrible play.
Yeah, what an awful play,
just
David.
Donkey play.
TJ Yeldon got a lot of love too. Davis still called him so inefficient, and he said he was bad. That's what I'm saying. If it was anybody else, Davis would take the hashtag bad analysis.
McKinnon is not bad. He just ran bad for one game.
Okay. Let's move on. Forward-thinking show. Kristen Michael, Silva, your take on him.
It's moving. It's moving.
He's gonna do work.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be low owned. He's running as well as any back in football. He's catching passes. The Falcons, a dome team, are going to Seattle, to CenturyLink Field in potentially bad weather. Seahawks smash. C-Mike smashes. Seahawks D smashes. I mean, this is a big dose of reality here for the Falcons.
Oh, the Seahawks onslaught is happening.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, Seahawks onslaught is the play, and you're going to get them all at like 8%.
I don't know. They've been like Jimmy Graham has been a chalky option I've heard throughout this week. I think Kristen Michael's probably going to get more love than you would expect.
Then don't play Jimmy Graham. Play Doug Baldwin. Play Russell
Baldwin's
Wilson.
so
Doug
good.
Baldwin will eat.
I think Baldwin's cheap on DraftKings, comparatively speaking, to FanDuel, because he is in my initial lineup. Let's pull up DraftKings as we talk about that. Tuttle, why we pull up DraftKings and make this Swolecast lineup. What's your take on running back this week?
Well, I gave it a little bit already. I like Christy Michael. You mentioned Mark Ingram. I do like him quite a bit for GPPs as a guy that has seen increased touches lately. if you want like a play that you're gonna play, and like if you're maxing out DraftKings entry limits at 150 lineups, and you want a guy to put in like 2 lineups, you could put James White in 2 lineups and not hate yourself completely for it. Saw his most snaps of the year last week with Tom Brady back active. Was involved in the passing game, and would expect similar involvement this week as well. I think he's okay as kind of a way long shot option.
Also, on that note, especially if Rashad Jennings does not play, Bobby Rainey could get some PPR love on DK. I think he's 3,300. Definitely in play.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah. You guys like some whack running backs, huh?
Hey, I said 2 out of 150 lineups, man.
I've only said good players.
You've only said like 3 players.
Yeah, only good. I'm only playing good players this week until we get to wide receiver and things get weird.
All right, let's start. Silva, you start with your DraftKings lineup. Go first.
Okay. C Mike.
Yeah. Yep.
We got a pencil in Seahawks defense then too.
Oh, let's just do the onslaught.
No, let's not do the onslaught. Let's go C Mike with Seahawks defense.
All right, Tuttle.
He just said Seahawks D.
I mean, he just said like,
man, stealing my Seahawks D pick from me. Classic soccer Dave right there.
No, I'm saying you just said Seahawks
right.
D.
All right, David, make your pick then.
All right. I will go at the wide receiver spot, Tavon Austin against Detroit.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about this. It's gross. Yeah, we got to talk. We got it like
3,900.
It's a thing on DraftKings.
It's a thing. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go Tyrod then.
Oh.
He has to have a 44-yard rushing touchdown for him to be a good tournament play, but he's drawing live to that outcome against the 49ers on the road.
Silva?
No one's winning tournaments with Tyrod Taylor.
That's it. You know what? That's a good point. He's a cash play. We're onslaughting Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the onslaught.
So like, onslaught with your team defense?
That's what an onslaught is. It has to have the defense.
Okay.
All right. OBJ.
Oof.
I like it. Yes, please.
Yep. I mean, no one's after last week. It's hard to imagine anyone being on him.
He's 8,800.
I'll take another wide receiver that's gonna make you all mad. And Davis knows who this is gonna be. Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean it's
the ultimate leverage play.
Ultimate leverage play. Like the because Cam Meredith is going to be the highest owned player in any game this weekend. All right, so we do probably have to take a value running back. So do we want to go crazy, like 2% owned with Jalen Richard, or do we want to go Giovanni Bernard?
No, like Richard's not winning anything.
Gio.
I'm down with Gio.
Okay. Gio.
All right. David.
Or potentially even Carlos Hyde on the road. Let's see. So we've got a tight end and flex position 4,150. Let's go with cheap tight end, and let's go with Jesse James. Since we don't have any Pittsburgh action right now, we go with Jesse James and hope that Silva is just really wrong about all the exposure there, and it's like a 3-touchdown game for Jesse James.
All right, Silva, you're looking at like 50. Carlos Hyde, Jamal Charles, Kelsey, Jimmy Graham, guys like that. Kelsey?
Yep.
Double tight end?
Yep.
All right. So the team is Russell Wilson, Kristen Michael, Giovanni Bernard, Tavon Austin, Odell Beckham, Alshon Jeffrey, Jesse James, Travis Kelsey, Seahawks. And if you want to make this a true onslaught, you can take Jimmy Graham over Kelsey. and Doug Baldwin over Alshon.
So can we talk about Odell Beckham a little bit? Because the Ravens are number one in Football Outsiders run defense DVOA. And the Giants aren't going to be able to run the ball at all on them. And Odell Beckham's ownership is going to be super low. I really like him on FanDuel because his price is kind of ridiculous for a guy who belongs in the 9,000 range. He's down to 8,300 on FanDuel. I guess he's more expensive on DK, but I think he's still a great tournament option. I mean, does everybody just think it's over or what?
I just think Eli's playing like 2013 Eli, and that Ben McAdoo has no idea, and Ben McAdoo has no idea how to get the best out of either Odell or Eli.
And I know he
but the Ravens aren't very good at rushing the passer, and they're going to be without Elvis Dumervil this week. And I don't think they're going to be able to rush the passer. And that's been really the problem with Eli, who's going back home, and they're not going to be able to move the ball with their running game. So
the thing is he could get 15 targets and 7 of them could be catchable. Like I'm totally on board with the logic behind the play, but I'm not going to be like 100% Odell on FanDuel or anything like that in tournaments. Like he's like a sprinkler.
No, I'm not even playing him. I mean, I'm not even really considering him like in cash, even on FanDuel, where I think he's a good price. He's at a great price point, but I think he's an awesome tournament play.
For $100 more, would you consider AJ Green a guy that you know it's going to get? I know he put up a dud last week, but you know he's going to get the targets. They're probably going to be playing from behind. Like, wouldn't he be the guy that you would rather own over Odell Silva?
No.
I'm Team Odell too, Silva. He's my total stakes cover boy of the week. So I'm Team Odell.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about some other wide receivers. We've got to talk about Tavon Austin. He's getting the targets. He's not even 4K. You've got Tavon Austin and Cam Meredith, two guys that have been appearing in cash game lineups for me. You just talked about Doug Baldwin. He's 7,600 on FanDuel. You've got another guy, Michael Thomas, on FanDuel at 5,400, potentially for this Saints offense. You have a lot of cheap wide receivers that could get some volume there. Let's talk about the guys we like and don't like. Davis, starting with you.
I mean, Tavon, mate. Like, it is absolutely disgusting. He's got like a 29% market share of all their red zone touches. He's getting like nine targets a game and 2.5 rushes per game. It's completely disgusting. And if he was priced at 4,700, I would scroll right by him and not think twice about it. But just the way that roster construction is going this week on DraftKings, I think he might be a necessary evil, and I need Evan to either talk me into or out of Tavon.
Evan?
I just never play Tavon, and I never know when he's going to do well, and that's an issue for me. So, I mean, that's all I got. I guess I understand it on DraftKings. I'm not doing any DraftKings this week, for the reasons I explained before. But I guess at 3,900, where he has locked in high volume usage, I guess it makes sense. And he's facing, by some metrics, one of the worst defenses in football. Actually, definitely one of the worst defenses in football. So, yeah, I mean, I guess he makes sense on DK.
10 targets last week. He had that dud of a game against Arizona, which is understandable, but 8 targets.
Look at that game too. I love looking at Tavon Austin's game logs.
It's like unreal, his range of outcomes.
6 targets, 2 receptions for 14 yards, and minus. He had week 1 against San Francisco. 12 targets, but only caught 4 balls for 3 yards.
Yeah, like his floor is definitely like 3. Like that's his floor.
Such a terrible player.
Dude, he could fumble a punt and end in the negatives. Like 100% in his range of outcomes.
Like turning 12 targets into 13 yards, like how?
Because he's the worst wide receiver in football.
Last week, he got open down the sideline for like a 31-yard deep ball on like a regular receiver route, and then he had 29 yards on his other 8 targets. He straight sucks.
He's the Melvin Gordon of wide receivers.
Oh, he's not even that good.
It's like the Jerick McKinnon of wide receivers.
David, I will kick you off this show.
You got to pick between Cam Meredith or Tavon Austin.
It's Cam Meredith.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Cam Meredith.
All right, and I know Silva.
Good tweet from Brandon Gula, I believe is his last name, from Number Fire today. Kevin White and Cam Meredith have not been on the field at all together, just playing that X role for the Chicago Bears, and combined their targets would be second in the NFL. Kevin White plus Cam Meredith playing that role.
All right. Let's talk about another guy who is just gross. He's had 2 down weeks the past 2 weeks. Jarvis Landry, he could be getting a lot of targets potentially, assuming that they run plays this week. Silva, what's your take on like Jarvis Landry just getting 14, 15 targets in a game they're going to get blown out in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all we need to know. You know, the issue is how long are the Dolphins going to have the ball in this game? Because that has been an issue in their last 2 games. Is no one talking about Brandon Cooks?
I love him in GPPs.
He's gonna rip it up, and he's cash game viable.
Whoa. Like cash game viable. His past 2 games were terrible. Like I hope they get him more exposure.
I don't care. He was on the road for one, and in the other one he faced Desmond Trufant. He has like one of the best matchups that you can possibly come up with this week, and he's gonna go off. And I think that Michael Thomas is a great play as well. You mentioned him earlier. He's like the ideal pivot off of Cam Meredith, and I think that his floor is similar. Michael Thomas leads the Saints in targets over their last 2 games. Over the course of the season, he leads the team in red zone targets. He's a full-time player in their offense. He scores touchdowns. They feature him in the red zone. I love in our FanDuel lineup, we need to do a Saints onslaught.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think
I like Snead a lot.
And Snead says he's 95% now, but you've got Snead. I think you've got Josh Hill, who's back. You've got Kobe Fleener. You've got Michael Thomas, and then Brandon Cooks. Like, I want to play Brandon Cooks. I've got him in like my 2 high stakes seasonal leagues. I want him to do well, but I just maybe it's recency bias. No. I cannot not
worried about his floor at all. The Saints are going to go attack the Panthers right where we know that they're weak, and Brandon Cooks is going to rip it up.
Does Brandon Cooks make it move, Silva?
I'm gonna now wave that kind of stuff going forward, but I'm playing Brandon Cooks.
All right,
it's not good for the brand, Evan. Not good for the brand.
Any other gross wide receivers before we talk about some expensive ones, like guys like Tyler Lockett? You talk about the Seahawks.
No,
I don't know if he's returning kicks this week, but they did say he's gonna get more action supposedly. Davis, you were on record last year saying he's going to have a 30-point game. It seems like if the Seahawks...
well, he did have a 30-point game.
I don't think he quite had a 30-point game.
He did.
Or it might have been in the playoffs when he did.
Nope, he did before the end of the regular season. Had a 30-point game.
All right.
I mean, it's ugly, but you can go Aiken if you really want to.
Or
he's
Rashad Perryman. Like, that's a...
The beat writers say if Steve Smith is out, he's Aiken. Perryman's going to stay in his role, and Aiken's going to play the Smith role.
Well, you saw that. I mean, just looking at last week's snap counts, you see who benefits with Smith off the field. Aiken's the guy if you're looking for targets. Perryman's probably he's the home run threat, but
yeah, he's literally.
If you're looking for like a target floor and a snap count floor, Aiken's the guy.
What's your take on that wide receiver situation in Baltimore, Silva?
Those guys are all horrible plays.
Yeah, I don't want to play him.
Yeah, I agree.
You just got to jam Tavon in.
Play those guys.
Like, none of these guys
I
you're
would
wanting
play,
to play.
I would play Tavon over those guys.
Oh. All right. So I think that definitely we've just talked about it as far as high-priced wide receiver being the GPP strategy to go if everyone's going cheap wide receiver and expensive running backs. We talked about Antonio Brown. We talked about Odell. What about T.Y. Hilton, a guy that's just getting targets week in, week out? He's been in my cash game lineup as well.
So I think he's the highest I would go in cash for spending on a wide receiver. I do like him this week.
Tuttle?
Allen Robinson or T.Y.?
Yeah,
it's close, but I have Hilton.
Yeah.
Cooks.
I take Allen Robinson on DraftKings over T.Y.
I mean, Allen Robinson, even though it sounds crazy because T.Y. Hilton's had 2 170-yard games, but Allen Robinson does seem, coming off the bye against this Indy defense, that he could be like the GPP play. Definitely, though, cash game, I'm going T.Y. Hilton. Let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins.
No. Let's not. Let's just talk about how Will Fuller is going to smash.
All right, let's talk about Will Fuller then, because right now I'm fading him again. His price tag.
So when Will
strategy.
Yeah. When Will Fuller was 4K, my main point for playing him in that week 2 game when he was 4K was I could see him being the only one of those value wide receivers who would end up being 7K on DraftKings this season. He's already escalating into that price range. He's just like Fuller has the more valuable fantasy role there, I think. And I don't think with either Alshon or Hopkins, we've seen, an appropriate price decrease for how minimally they are involved in their offense. Hopkins is averaging 57 reception yards per game. He's gotten bailed out by some touchdowns in a couple of these games, but Fuller is the one that you would play in cash on both sides IMO.
Evan?
Love Fuller. Tuttle, tell me that you're on Cooks, please.
I mean, I think he's a good play. I'm not nearly on him as much as you are, but
no. I came into he's definitely in play for tournaments. Like you look at that week 1 performance, like that's his ceiling, a 30 plus point game. But you also have to look at the number of options that they have there in New Orleans and think that there is risk there in cash.
Except that he plays the position where you attack the Panthers.
I'm on Cooks. This is a good take.
I am not worried about his floor at all. He's going to crush.
So, Davis, you'll be taking him in cash then?
I mean, I don't have a cash team yet, but he's in play. I mean, I'm
probably
going.
You just said T.Y. Hilton was the most expensive you would go at cash game wide receiver.
I mean, I do feel better about Hilton's floor than Cooks, but like Evan's take is not a bad one. Like
I'm not saying
Cooks has to have one of the 5 highest ceiling projections of any wide receiver this week.
Right, and that's why I think he's an excellent GPP play. I just don't like him in my cash game contest.
The Panthers are a funnel defense. We're at the Superdome where Brandon Cooks has scored 8 touchdowns in his last 7 games. He scored 11 of his 15 career touchdowns at the Superdome. I mean, yep. Breeze is going to go off. The Panthers are trotting out some cornerbacks that, I mean, I've never even heard of, like guys that they're signing off the practice squad.
All right.
Yeah.
We know that Evan is in love with Cooks. I love him too for GPPs. I hope he goes off. I really do. And if he does, I'll apologize for saying he wasn't cash game viable. Let's talk about Will Fuller, though, Evan, because this is a hot button topic this week. Do you think his price has risen to the point where he's not cash game viable?
The Panthers are like pretty good at defending the middle of the field, so I don't think the game sets up very well for Snead or Fleener. The game sets up perfectly for Cooks and Michael Thomas on the perimeter.
We're on Will Fuller. We're on Will Fuller,
Fuller,
man. What do you think
Will
about Will
Fuller-
Fuller this week?
I think he's awesome. I think that he has almost the same number of targets on the season as DeAndre Hopkins. And he's much cheaper than DeAndre Hopkins. And he has more big play ability than DeAndre Hopkins. And Patrick Robinson has been bad for the Colts, and the Colts don't bring any pressure. And that bodes well for a guy who can get deep. And we've seen he has 2 punt return touchdowns so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the Texans are my favorite defense this week on FanDuel. So, I mean, that's just a real logical little correlation play there with Will Fuller and Texans defense. Pat Thorman brought it up earlier in the week. Love Will Fuller. Would be willing to play him in cash.
Tuttle, is he cash game viable for you as well?
Yeah, I think for Texans, I think both him and Lamar Miller are cash game viable. Although I'd probably only play one of the two in a lineup.
All right. Kelvin Benjamin, yay or nay in this where they have the highest team total? Julian Edelman, yay or nay? Let's talk about the top 2 wide receiving options for both these teams that have high team totals. Davis?
We'll get exposure to him in tournaments, not considering him for cash at 8,100.
Tuttle?
Ditto.
Silva?
Love Benjamin.
Yeah. He's only 7,800 on FanDuel.
Edelman is an awesome play on DraftKings.
Yeah.
I guess people are just looking at his box score. He led the team in targets last week. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, and recency bias though, because speaking of someone that had him in most of my lineups, recency bias is going to bring people off of him this week because of what he did last week. Because he torpedoed some teams.
You can't stop the unicorn when Silva's on him though. You can't do it.
The tight end in general. All right, so let's pull up FanDuel. We'll talk about it before we talk about tight ends. Davis, I'll let you go first.
Okay, Zach Miller is my favorite priced player on FanDuel at any position. I think he's 5,600 on FanDuel. I'm pulling up the salaries right now, but I think Zach Miller scores another touchdown this week.
Like, I agree. Zach Miller is a fine play, but this seems like a week for the high end tight ends to go off.
Agree. Greg Olsen is probably who I'll have in cash.
Okay, so this is a GPP play then for Zach Miller.
Don't we always make tournament teams?
Sometimes we don't, but you just said that Zach Miller is your favorite play.
I said he's my favorite. I said he's my favorite priced play.
Okay.
And I take Allen Robinson.
All right.
All right.
Breeze.
David.
All right. Since we didn't do it in the other league, I'll do it here and go LaShawn McCoy.
All right. Michael Thomas. Easy play at 5,400 on FanDuel.
Tuttle.
All right. What do we have left here?
Not much. We have 5.8 left per slot with a running back, wide receiver, kicker, and defense.
Well, we need Cooks.
All right. So Silva picks Cooks.
Oh, running back gonna get gross.
7,100. If you go cheap,
So put in min price kicker, and
if you want to do
defense.
if you want to do Saints onslaught, you could go Mark Ingram at 6,700.
Ingram.
Breeze, Ingram, and Cooks and Thomas.
Oh God,
That's what we did last week.
we're just so aggressive with these lineups lately.
You have to be though. That's how you win.
Didn't our DK onslaught like 5x?
Just dominated.
Oh, it just destroyed. Yeah, because we had the Steelers onslaught with Martellus Bennett.
Hey, if you went
Yeah, it was sick.
How do we not win the Millie?
I don't know.
Because we
Because
had
we had Jerick McKinnon.
Hey,
wouldn't it be amazing if
one of
we
these
like
won the million.
if our lineup won the Millie and then we had to split it? Like,
well, the best thing would be is that the chat would have bitched about the lineup the entire time we were making it, and so they would have just felt so dumb.
If we went down to like Cleveland Browns D against the Titans on home at the road, you could get Kristen Michael in at 7,400.
Let's just go Onslaught. F it.
Gonna go with
Yeah,
that.
I just already put Ingram in there.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Hey, you know who I think is a good tournament play this week on FanDuel at running back is Ryan Matthews against the Redskins.
All right, talk about that because Sproles looked like he was the guy last week.
No. No, I mean
Matthew saw.
Sproles plays the most snaps, but that's because he's in there to pass protect and all different things. When Ryan Matthews is in the game, they are feeding him the rock. And the Redskins have the worst run defense in football.
They do.
That's why Mark Trestman got fired because Terrence West had massive gaps to run through all last week, and they kept using a dink and dunk passing game against them. I mean, it was a total joke there by Mark Trestman. And Doug Peterson won't make that mistake. Like, it is evident clearly on the game film that you can just pound it down the Redskins' throat.
They can't tackle anybody.
Their tackling has been horrible as well. The issue, the one concern that I have with Ryan Matthews is that he essentially cost the Eagles the game last week with a lost fumble.
Marion Barbered it.
Yeah, so I don't know if that will cost him some playing time, but I think he has 2 touchdown, 100 plus rushing yard upside at 6,500. Just throwing that out there.
All right. Now let's talk about tight end. How expensive is too expensive for FanDuel, Evan? Like, is Cam at 8,100 cash game viable? I'm feeling you might say no if you're playing Brandon Cooks in your lineup.
I like Kelsey the best at his price point. I think that he's the best play.
You like him over Delaney Walker?
And he is less threatened by weather than somebody who is taking deep shots. I don't really worry about the weather too much. Period for Alex Smith because that's not really his game. It would bother me for Chris Conley. It would probably bother me for Amari Cooper, but it's not really going to bother me for these guys that live in shorter zones. Kelsey has been an animal this year. Nobody's talking about him. The Raiders are bad against the tight end. In their last game, they got smashed by Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates. Kelsey has 8 red zone targets in 4 games. He's on pace for career highs in every statistical category, and he's going to set career highs in every statistical category because the Chiefs' defense is bad. So I think that Kelsey is the best price play among tight ends this week.
And we didn't
on FanDuel.
And we really didn't talk any more about that Kansas City situation. If Jeremy Maclin is at 6,900 on FanDuel, I think he's also in play for wide receivers in cash. And then you've got Spencer Ware and Jamal Charles. You've got this thing where they said they're going to sprinkle in Jamal Charles, so like people that were wanting to play him at 5,100, you're not going to be able to. And more so, if it rains, like how much are they going to risk Jamal Charles? Like that's my question.
They said they're going to sprinkle him in, but I'm thinking that Glazer, who normally has good sources within the Chiefs organization, he tweeted the game before the bye that Charles was going to see 10 to 15 snaps. He saw 11. I'm thinking that Glazer will likely give us an update Sunday morning that'll inform us what we need to do with Charles.
Yeah. I just can't. I can't see him giving a lot of touches
play Charles
in the rain. Tuttle, what's your take on the Kansas City situation against Oakland?
Exactly what Davis just said. Wait till Sunday. I mean, if we have the information we have now and get nothing else, I think you just have to avoid it. You can't play a running back from that game.
Macklin, Kelsey, on them both? Alex Smith?
I like Kelsey more. I think Smith is a fine play as well. I think you can run Alex Smith out solo too. Naked Alex Smith if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, Alex Smith originally I think was the second or third ranked quarterback on FanDuel for me. But something about watching Alex Smith in the rain is like he always ends up being fine. It's not just like being a top 15.
You're not allowed to watch him if you play him in fantasy. That's the rule with Alex Smith.
He's outscored Cam Newton 3 out of 4 weeks. Not just like top 15, but he's outscored Cam. I think that Cam though I think he's going to be the cash game play for me on FanDuel. Like
I need to say this. Greg Olsen is the best play out of any position, anyone you can take in the Saints-Panthers game. He is the best play.
I agree with you there. Especially on FanDuel. Maybe not best. So much.
Second best.
Second best for Silva. Top one best for me.
He's not up to Cook's level. All right. Any other closing thoughts? Starting with you, Tuttle.
Don't play the lineups we made today.
In cash.
At all.
I think you just we're taking the ball and just running with it as far as like the onslaught goes.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little too overzealous. We got like the 2 tight end strategy on DraftKings without playing the 2 actual best tight ends.
Yeah, dude, we got that sick differential lineup, bro. The Siege told me that's what I have to do.
And and you have to take a little bit of blame also on FanDuel because Allen Robinson does take a lot of salary.
Robinson's expensive on FanDuel, yeah.
So more expensive than T.Y. Hilton, but that's why we play the tournament games, and hopefully, like, you know, people won like $17,000 with their lineups last week. It all balances out if you lose it all this week. Just you won it all last week. You can't complain too much about it. Silva, closing thoughts just about this slate overall. Like, do you feel good? Do you feel bad? Are you just glad that you're at a beach house?
No, I'm really excited about it. I'm excited for these games. I know everybody's worried right now about the weather, but
we don't care.
I like the Alex Smith onslaught with Alex and Macklin and Kelsey, and bring it back with Cooper. I think that has a lot of upside. I don't know. I guess we'll find out about the weather on Sunday morning, but I mean, I'm not making decisions on Thursday or Friday based on early weather forecasts about teams that play close to the ocean where things can change within the matter of a couple hours.
I don't.
Who's the Tuttle's terrible take? We didn't get a Tuttle's terrible take.
Yeah, we did at running back. He said Gio.
No, that was not an official Tuttle's terrible take. I need one right now, Dan.
I'll just go Aiken.
Oh no, he said Alshon. Alshon was his terrible take.
Oh, I mean, if you want Alshon, yeah, I'll gladly take Alshon as my terrible take.
Okay.
I thought I had to pick like really shitty players for Tuttle's terrible take, but I'll gladly take Alshon.
Anytime I have to roster 2 like low price wide receivers, it makes me a little uneasy. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that this feels kind of like a trap week. So I hope that I'm just emotionally free rolling it right now, and it's going to end up being a really good week. But this feels like kind of a gross slate with relying on low price wide receivers. Davis, your overall feeling about the week?
I mean, I'm not excited with the fact that Tavon is in my lineup right now. It's going to be an interesting week because I think that optimal lineup construction might lead you away from the Saints-Panthers games in cash, which, that's obviously just going to be a terrifying fade every second of that game.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like the Saints-Giants game. If you faded that, you're happy. There's going to be legitimate points here in the Superdome.
Mm-hmm.
The Coors Field. Forget who it was. Maybe Reeves said the Coors Field of the NFL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Totally.
All right. Thanks, Evan Silva. You can find his column on rotoworld.com. It's a must-read each and every week, the matchups column there. Also, Davis Mattek with his automatic absolutes. I got it that time.
Hey, there you go.
And Tuttle with his Tuttle's takes on Fantasy Insiders. We also have the Platinum Chat. That's been really fun. We're doing like NHL, NBA, NFL. So
Predators onslaught tonight, everybody.
I'm down with that. It's only a 3-game slate. It's kind of ugly though. So
all the better for an onslaught.
Yeah, you're not really going contrarian by saying Preds is one of the best teams in the league. Anyways, we'll see you back next week, 5 p.m. Eastern, Swolecast.com. Catch us on, if you go to Swolecast.com, there's links on YouTube and the podcast. They'll be up later tonight, Friday. And tweet at us, #Swolecast. We'll see you next time here on FantasyInsiders.com.